Hey guys, I want to talk about shame in the South Asian community. Now, shame culture is huge. If you're part of our culture, you totally understand. You could be shamed for anything. Having personal desires, being a human being, breathing in and out. You can literally be shamed for anything. Now, I'm doing this video from the perspective of a child of divorce. Now, my parents got divorced about 22 years ago. And at that time, if it's a taboo now in the South Asian community, it was a massive taboo then. Everybody said to my mum, oh, what's going to happen to your daughters? Oh my God, they're going to turn into slags and this is going to happen and that's going to happen and no one's going to marry them and it's going to be crazy and it's going to be awful. And what are you going to do? And even if he does abuse you, hit you, ignore you, whatever, stay with him because that's better for what everyone else thinks. A lot of the time they use the children as like a little tool as well. Like, what's going to happen to them, if their father leaves the house? Now, one thing I will say is that if your marriage has got to a stage where you're thinking about actually pursuing a divorce, most women don't do that lightly. And it's quite common in the South Asian community that there's a lot of physical abuse, there's a lot of emotional abuse, there's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of that in many societies, but I'm just focusing on us brown people for now. The pressure that is put on the woman to put up with a man's bad behavior and to do it for the sake of the kids is actually so terrifying. And it goes to show me that they don't understand the fundamentals of growing up in a house. Now, one thing I will say from the perspective of a child of divorce from way back when I see the state and the mental health, the self-esteem and the choices that the people have made that remained, whose parents remained in toxic marriages, the consequence is 10 times awful than what I've ever experienced. The mental and emotional development of these people is actually stunted. When the mother and the father are in an unhappy, toxic environment, people that think, oh, well, they stayed together and that's good enough. You guys have no idea, what I've witnessed in the consequences of that. My mum leaving my dad when she did because of the particular types of abuse and neglect, that taught me in my life that no matter what I experience, self-respect and love is something that I shouldn't have to beg for. That's a basic human right. If you want to be married to me, then love and respect is something that should come along with that, surely. But in the South Asian community, somehow women, we are trained to be prepared for neglect, abuse, bad behavior. We're sort of preordained from our childhood, essentially, that we have a saying that, tumhara janaza wahan se niklega. So that basically means if you're going to leave your marital home, it better be in a coffin. And that is so deeply toxic. And I want to say a couple of things about why I commend my mother for making the decisions that she made. Mine and my sister's self-esteem rose pretty quickly in our adult life when we came to realize that it wasn't our duty to put up with bad behavior. Everybody makes decisions in their life and it doesn't mean that's going to be perfect, but we weren't held to ransom by our families that, well, actually, if something goes wrong, it's because we told you to do it this way. My mum leaving my father was actually so empowering for us that we realized that as girls, it's not important for us to be the shoe on someone's foot. Our existence and our contribution to a household, to society, is equally as relevant. It just comes in a different angle. So if you're a woman that's oh, I'm staying for the kids, I would urge you to look into the psychology of children that grow up in unhappy households and the importance of having a happy and aligned mother in order for those children to flourish into happy and whole adults. The people that shame us in our culture, they suffer from jahiliyat. They suffer from a lack of education. They don't know anything else. They're still stuck in that colonial feudal mindset because a lot of our South Asian countries have only been independent for less than 100 years. if you feel the pressure from family members telling you to stay in an unhappy environment and you haven't educated yourself, the consequences of the misery of your children is going to be on your head. And that sounds like a very strong thing to say, but it's a consequence that no one wants to tell you about. If you stay with a bad man, especially if he's abusive and neglectful, you are basically teaching your children the parameters of what's acceptable in life. And that could be two consequences. One, they end up in the same type of misery as you. Or two, they end up despising you and hating you for staying. They lose all respect for you. So this self-sacrifice thing in South Asian culture, like, oh, well, once you have kids, you stay with that man and you die there. They don't understand the consequences of what they're saying. And unfortunately, women being unhappy, unhealthy, and just crying themselves to sleep at night is just something that's become so acceptable in our community. And I'm here to tell you, as a child of divorce, alhamdulillah, I've got a career, I've got a home. I sustain myself until a point where I can be put in an environment of love and respect. And that's what I have in my life now. I was able to draw on those boundaries, but no, that's not acceptable, because my mum didn't go through all those struggles to give me a whole life for then me to cry myself to sleep every night. No way. There's a whole world of possibilities out there, and sometimes bravery is all we need. Let me know if you want to know more.